Please, the topic we have, like I said last week, is transition words. Hello, good morning, ma'am. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir. I can hear you.
All right. Well, while we wait for others to come in, I would just have to be explaining just do a little explanation. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you and me.
All right. So transition words. What do we mean by transition? I told you the other time when we had a lesson that transition is just movement from one point to another. And I said it's from the word transit. So whenever you hear goods in transit, mass transit, so it simply means transportation or movement from one place to the other. So that is what, that's the root word of transition. From transit, we get transition. So transition simply means movement from one place to the other. And when you're writing, your chain of thoughts move. They move from one point to the other. So when you start, you keep moving. So the words that help us to know where you are, where your thoughts are as you're writing, the words that you use to tell your readers what point you are is what we call transition words. So when we talk about the transition words, we say that in both academic writing and professional writing, your goal is to convey information clearly and concisely. If not to convert the reader to your way of thinking, transitions help you to achieve these goals by establishing logical connections between sentences, paragraphs, and sections of your papers. That is what transitions do. So in other words, transitions tell readers what to do with the information you present to them. What are they doing? What are they going to do with it? How did you present it? Like you're telling them the order. So transitions help your readers to know where you are in your state of thinking and what they should do with the information you're providing for them. When you use the words like next, then, after this, as well as, immediately after that, this one happened. So these are all transition words. So your readers get to know what you are saying. They will know the level, and they also know how your information is conveyed. Whether single words or quick phrases or full sentences, they function as signs that tell readers how to think about, organize, and react to old and new ideas as they read through what you have written. Usually when we use connectives, we try to link what we have said earlier to the next one. When we use words like contrary to the point raised earlier, we can say that this other idea is quite, so contrary is a transition. We also call them connectives. If you don't call them transition words, you can call them connectives or connectors. So they connect words, they connect your paragraph. Now we're going to look at some types of.
I mean, I cannot hear you very clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you, but not really well.
All right, let me look at some arrangements.
Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me well now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I said in both academic writing and professional writing, your goal is to convey, to pass across information clearly and concisely. If not to convert the reader to your way of thinking, transitions help you to achieve these goals by establishing logical connections between sentences, between paragraphs and sections of your papers. So that's what connectives do. So let me just explain or list the types of connectives for you, and then we'll end the lesson. Next time, we'll continue from there and explain it more. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, so here it said types of transitions. We have number one, transition between sections. Two, we have transitions within paragraphs. And we have transitions between paragraphs. So these are the three types of transitions. If you are writing, section means a section of a paper, a section of a whole booklet, or a section of a whole article. Transitions can join them. So there are transitions that help us to link one section of your writing to another. So we say particularly in longer works, it may be necessary to include transitional paragraphs that summarize for the reader the information just conveyed and specify the relevance of this information to the discussion in the following section. And transitions within paragraphs, these are the ones that join sentences. As with transitions between sections and paragraphs, transitions within paragraphs act as cues by helping readers to anticipate what is coming before they read it. Within paragraphs, transitions tend to be single words or short phrases. Then transitions between paragraphs, these are the ones that join one paragraph to the other. So if you have done good job of arranging paragraphs, if you have done good job of arranging paragraphs so that the content one leads logically to the next, the transition will highlight a relationship that already exists by summarizing the previous paragraph and suggesting something of the content of the paragraph that follows. A transition between paragraphs can be a word or two. However, for example, similarly, a phrase or a sentence. Transitions can be at the end of the first paragraph, at the beginning of the second paragraph, or in both places. So then we have some common transitions. If you are writing an essay and you want to show similarity between things, similarities between the first paragraph you've written to another, you can use word transitions that show similarity. So all these transitions we are going to state now, they all have different functions. There are transitions that function to show similarity. There are transitions that function to show exception or contrast. So look at the ones that show similarity. If you want to show your readers that the paragraph you've written earlier, has a similarity with the next paragraph, you use transitions of similarity. So we have words like also, in the same way, just as, so too. You can say, just as the man did not come home, so too did his wife refuse to come home. So these are transitions that show similarity. Another word there is likewise. Similarly is also a transition of similarity. Then we have transitions that show exception or contrast. If you want to show that something is different from the other, or an idea that you've raised is different from the next idea, you use transitions of contrast or exception. We have but, however, in spite of, on the other hand, nevertheless, nonetheless, notwithstanding, in contrast, on the contrary, still, yet. So these are transitions that show contrast. They show opposition in ideas. So you can use them. Remember I said we have transition within that's a text, that's a transition within a section of a paper. Then there's the transition between paragraphs, and then we have transition within paragraphs. So when you are trying to explain contrast, you can use the word but, maybe within a sentence. It's in our next lesson, we're going to expand more. We have transitions. General word for them is transition. We have transitions that are coordinators. We have the subordinators and we have the connectors. So you have to just get the general knowledge now, like I'm saying. But is used to show contrast. Nneka went home so early, but her sister did not go home early. So but is showing contrast. We have however. It's also used to show contrast. In spite of, it's used to show contrast. On the other hand, nevertheless, nonetheless, notwithstanding, in contrast, on the contrary, still, and yet. They are all transitions that show contrast. We also have sequence. Transitions that are used to show sequence, the order in which something occurred. We have transitions like first, second, third, next, then, finally. These are transitions that show order. When you are writing something and you want to tell us the order in which the things occurred, you can start with first. I'm going to teach you how to do this and do that. After that, we will pay attention to its application. Second, my friends are going to come around and help you practice this. Third, you are going to be allowed to feature in this. Next, we will arrange this in order and put everything on its proper place. Then we can go outside and finish up what we started. Finally, everybody is free to go home. So these are sequences, transitions that show you the sequence. I've told you that writing must be logically arranged in sequence. One of those characteristics of a paragraph, the elements of a paragraph. We said it must have unity, it must have sequence, it must have completeness, and it must have coherence. So if you want your paragraph to be orderly, you use these sequence transitions that show sequence, and that is these ones that I've listed here. We also have transitions that show time. If you want to arrange your write-up in order of time, you use the time transition words. The transitions that show time are after, afterwards, at last. So these are all transitions. Before, currently, during, earlier, immediately, later, meanwhile, now, recently, simultaneously, subsequently, then. So we call all of them time transitions or transitional words. Transition words that show time. If you're writing an essay, you use these words to show the time. When I moved into the house, I saw a couple of things going on. After that, I left the room to my aunt's room. She was not there when I knocked at the door. At last, she appeared from the kitchen and told me that she had been cooking some delicious meals. Before that, I went to my mother's hut to tell her I was leaving for the party. So these are all time. You're trying to use these transitions to show time, and it makes your writing very understandable. So the use of transition words help your writing to flow in a proper way. Your readers will appreciate what you are writing and follow it up very well. Then we have example, to transition words that show example. If you want to show example while you're writing, or maybe you mention something and you want to add its examples, so you can say, use words like, for example. These are phrases, transition words that show example. You can use, for example, for instance, namely, specifically, to illustrate. So these are transition words that show example. Then we have transition words that show emphasis. If you want to emphasize more on something, you use transition words like even, indeed, in fact, of course, and truly. So we also have transition words that show place or position. We have words like above, adjacent, below, beyond, here, in front, in back. And then we have nearby, and then there. This one should be in the back. These are all transition words that show place or position. Then we have transition words that show cause and effect. You know that there's always a cause. When there's a cause of something, there will be an effect. So in writing, when you're trying to show cause and effect, you use transition words. James fell, that's the effect. James fell, something caused it. Maybe there was banana peels on the floor, or there was a pool of water on the floor. That's the cause. She fell because of the water and broke his ankle, maybe fractured his ankle. That is the effect of the fall. So whenever you want to show cause and effect in writing, transition words that show cause and effect are accordingly, consequently, hence, so, therefore, thus. Cause and effect. Transition words that show cause and effect: accordingly, consequently, hence, so, therefore, thus. So you see how all of them are separate. Do not use the two of them together like that. You don't say so, therefore. So is a transition word that shows cause and effect. Therefore is a transition word that shows cause and effect. So you cannot use the both of them together, like some people use when they are writing. So you have to pay proper attention to all that. Then we have transition words that add more information. Transition words that will say it gives additional support or evidence to something. So such transition words are additionally, again, also, and, as well, besides, equally important, further, furthermore, in addition, moreover, then. So whenever you're writing and you want to add more information or put more evidence to what you are saying or what you are writing, then use words like additionally. Additionally, she did not really pay proper attention, and that is why she didn't get it right. Again, I can say that we were all absent from the class. Also, all my friends who attended the party were given a big party pack to take home. So these are all additional information. Whenever you want to add anything, you can use all these words. Or as well, it's also used to add more information or put an additional support or evidence. You can use the words like the phrase like as well, besides. Equally important is the presence of the man who came here to visit us. So these are all showing additional information. Then we have further. We moved towards the park and saw a huge element. You have also furthermore. Furthermore is used to add, put more support to what you are saying. Words like in addition, moreover, and then. They are all transition words that show additional support or evidence. Then we also have transition words that show conclusion or summary. When you want to summarize your work, you are writing an essay and you want to summarize it, you can use transition words that show conclusion. We have words like finally, in a word. That means in summary, in totality, in a word. When you say in a word, I can say this or that. In brief, briefly, in conclusion, in the end, in the final analysis, on the whole, thus, to conclude, to summarize, in sum, to sum up, in summary. So these are all transition words that we use to show conclusion or summary. So whenever you're writing and you're approaching the end of your write-up, or you're almost ending your thoughts, you use these transition words to end whatever you're writing. So we've mentioned some of them here. Finally, the man went over the pool and dragged the drowning child out of it. And that was how she was rescued. So you're trying to show conclusion or summary. Summary means the end part where you recollect. In writing, we usually call it the denouement. As in literature, denouement is like the ending part of a writing or a story where all the events are recollected and explained. So every mystery is resolved. People who were mentioned earlier are explicated, or maybe contrasting or maybe complicated areas are explicated or explained. We call it denouement in writing, denouement. So your summary in writing is like the denouement, where you explain everything. And remember that if you're writing a story has like 4 levels. We have the beginning, we have the transition, then we have the climax, and then the ending. So you use this summary, these conclusion words or summary words, the transitions that show conclusion or summary to end your story. So we always use it. For example, this finally, in a word, in brief, briefly, in conclusion, in the end, in the final analysis, in the whole, to conclude, to summarize, in sum, to sum up, in summary. You use them appropriately when you want to show conclusion or summary. So look at some examples here. We're going to look at some ways transition words make a difference. We said here, transition words make a difference. The first column shows you a sentence maybe a write-up without transition. The other column shows a write-up with transition. Here, Carla couldn't sleep the night before her big presentation. She needed an extra large cup of coffee before work. And then here, he said, Carla couldn't sleep the night before her presentation. Therefore, she needed an extra large cup of coffee before work. So you see how transition makes your writing very interesting. Instead of just saying, Carla couldn't sleep the night before her big presentation, full stop, that was a sentence. Then we say, she needed an extra large cup of coffee before work. But here, with transition, it creates a synergy. There's a connection to why she needed an extra large cup of coffee. There's a connection. There's a smooth movement from one sentence to the other. That's why this one is a transition in a paragraph, within a paragraph. I told you we have transition in a section, transition within a paragraph, and transition between paragraphs. This one is transition within a paragraph. This is like a paragraph. Carla couldn't sleep the night before her presentation. Therefore is a transition word. Carla couldn't sleep the night before her presentation. Therefore, she needed an extra large cup of coffee before work. So look at another example. Transition words make a difference. Without transition, with transition. The first one, Jeffrey will be ready to leave for the trip in 20 minutes. Fill up the car with gas, please. Jeffrey will be ready to leave for the trip in 20 minutes. In the meantime, fill up the car with gas, please. You see, in the meantime, showing us time. Right now you're waiting. This time you're waiting. This time you're spending. Use it to fill up the car with gas. That is the meaning of in the meantime. So it makes it better and nicer than it was before. Jeffrey will be ready to leave for the trip in 20 minutes. Fill up the car with gas, please. But here, Jeffrey will be ready to leave for the trip in 20 minutes. In the meantime, fill up the car with gas, please. That is proper with transition. Look at the next one. The trip through the desert was long and tiring for the crew. They all agreed it was worth it. With transition, the trip through the desert was long and tiring for the crew. Afterwards, they all agreed it was worth it. You see, afterwards. This is when you order or sequence afterwards or time. So that is what transition does to our writing. Look at another example here. Denise decided to stop doing her homework. She failed freshman English. With transition, Denise decided to stop doing her homework. Consequently, she failed freshman English. The next one, last night I had a vivid dream. I was living in Paris. I went online and booked a trip. With transition, last night I had a vivid dream. I was living in Paris. As a result, I went online and booked a trip. That is cause and effect. So this all shows us how transition makes our work different. It creates a good difference. It makes a good difference whenever we use transition words. All right, we'll end it here. That's tomorrow. We'll continue from where we stopped and make at school. That's when you come to school, you receive some work also that you will do. Does anyone have a question?
Yeah, we joined late. I don't know whether it's possible to have a recap of what we missed.
All right.
I don't know. We started from like slide, I think 81 or 82. If you could just
all right, we started from slide 72.
Okay.
So our topic said transition words or paragraph connectors. Then I said in writing, whether it is academic or professional writing, you need to convey your information, and transition words that help you to do that. Transition words help you to pass your information clearly. It was just like an introduction. Then we said, for your readers to know, to say that, in other words, transition tell readers what to do with the information you present to them. Whether single words, quick phrases, or full sentences, their function. That is, whether transition is just a single word or transition is a full sentence. They function as signs that tell readers how to think about, organize, and react to old and new ideas as they read through what you have written. The basic thing about transition words is that you have to organize your writing very well. First, learn organization. Learn to organize your work. You don't just start writing. You have to organize your thoughts. In our previous lesson, I told you that when we mark essays, we look at content. Do your work, or maybe does your work contain the proper thing you were told to write about, or did you go off point? The next thing we look at is organization. It's very important. How did you arrange your work in order, chronologically? And that is where transition also helps you to do that. Transition comes in here. Your work has to be organized so that if you're using all those transition words, it will be linking the other one. So that is what transition does. Then in 75, we said, transition signal relationships between ideas. Relationships such as, you want to show another example coming up. So another example coming up, stay alert. That's when you use transition words that show example. For example, you're maybe writing an argumentative essay and you want to give an example to back up your evidence. You say, for example, for instance. So you add up, put it up. If you want to show additional information, you use words, transition words that show additional support. In addition, so here's an exception to my previous statement, or although this idea appears to be true, here is a real truth. Here is a real story. That's when you use words that show, transition words that show contrast. For example, you use in spite of, although, in as much as. So these are all showing transition. Transition words that show contrast, they are all contrast. So we say, basically, transitions provide the reader with directions for how to piece together your ideas into a logical, coherent argument. Transitions are not just verbal decorations that embellish your paper by making it sound or read better. That's not what they are. They help your readers to put all the pieces of your logic, the pieces of your writing, they gather all of them together and make a simple whole. Then we said here, there are words with particular meanings that tell the reader to think and react in a particular way. That's what transitions are. In providing the reader with these important cues, transitions help readers understand the logic of how your ideas fit together. Now, transition and organization. I explained it before. In order for you to do well in using transitions, you have to learn organizations. Learn what we call organization. Learn how to put your thoughts. Learn how to organize your thoughts first before you write. So we say, since the clarity and effectiveness of your transitions will depend greatly on how well you have organized your paper, you may want to evaluate your paper's organization before you work on transitions. In the margins of your draft, summarize in a word or short phrase what each paragraph is about. And that's why I told you that each paragraph must contain a topic sentence. Writing requires outline. Before you write, just write out your points. This paragraph 1 will have this. Paragraph 2, this is what I will talk about. Paragraph 3, this is what I'll say. Paragraph 4, that's what I'll write. Paragraph 5, here is where I will conclude. So that's what we call organization. That's the outlining. Once you have created a sketch, an outline is like a sketch, a skeleton of your writing. So with that, you would now use transition words to link each paragraph. Once you have written your points out, maybe you have 5 points to write about in this essay. Each point is a paragraph. You expand it using supporting sentences and examples. The next idea, the next topic sentence, you expand it using supporting sentences and ideas. It is while you are supporting them with these sentences that you then link them. You use transition words. You either join sentence to a sentence, or you join a paragraph to a paragraph, or you join a section to a section of your writing. That's why we said that transition is of different forms. So in the margins of your draft, that is before you write anything, make a draft first. Draft down something. Oh yeah, this is what I'm going to write. I'm going to write about 5 things. Paragraph 1 will have number 1. Paragraph 2, this. Paragraph 3, that. After doing that, summarize in a word or short phrase what each paragraph is about or how it fits into your analysis as a whole. This exercise should help you to see the order of and connection between your ideas more clearly. If after doing this exercise, you find that you still have difficulty linking your ideas together in a coherent fashion, your problem may not be with transition, but with organization. For help in this area and more thorough explanation of the reverse outlining technique described in the previous paragraph, please see the Writing Center's handout. So this one is just like an information where you can go and get the information. So here in the next slide, we said how transitions work. The organization of your written work includes two elements. Number one, the order in which you have chosen to present the different parts of your discussion or argument. Then number two, first is the order. What order? Do you want to start from the beginning to the end, or do you want to do flashback? Do you want to tell us what happened in the past and link it to the present? What is the order? So how transitions work, the organization of your written work includes two elements. One, the order in which you have chosen to present the different parts of your discussion or argument. And the second one, the relationships you construct between these parts. Transitions cannot substitute for good organization. No, transitions are not used for organization. You cannot organize your story wrongly. Like you bring the third paragraph instead of it being the second paragraph, and you bring the last paragraph as first paragraph, something that should have been the ending of your essay. You bring it as the beginning. That is wrong organization. So we say that transitions cannot substitute for good organization, but they can make your organization clearer and easier to follow. Take a look at the following. Look at the examples we showed here. So you see types of transitions. So these are the examples I'm trying to show now. You see why we say that transitions cannot substitute for organization. So we say transitions between sections. Particularly in longer works, it may be necessary to include transitional paragraphs that summarize for the reader the information just covered and specify the relevance of this information to the discussion on the following section. Transitions within paragraphs. As with transitions between sections and paragraphs, transitions within paragraphs act as cues by helping readers to anticipate what is coming before they read it. Within paragraphs, transitions tend to be single words or short phrases. So transitions can exist within paragraphs, just like I told you. Transitions between paragraphs, these are the ones that now link paragraphs. So transitions within paragraphs link one sentence to the other. Then transitions between paragraphs link one paragraph to the other. Links maybe paragraph one, you at the end of paragraph one, you begin paragraph two with a transition word. Can begin it with also, as stated earlier. However, you can say this said earlier, however, we can also begin with it. So we can now say that this one does this or does that. So transitions can link one paragraph to the other. So if you have done a good job of arranging paragraphs so that the content of one leads logically to the next, the transition will highlight a relationship that already exists by summarizing the previous paragraph and suggesting something of the content of the paragraph that follows. A transition between paragraphs can be a word or two. For example, we have however. For example, similarly, a phrase or a sentence. Transitions can be at the end of the first paragraph, at the beginning of the second paragraph, or in both places. So transitions can begin. You can use a transition word to begin the first, or you can even use it to start the first paragraph. It can be at the beginning of the first paragraph, at the beginning of the second paragraph, or anywhere you want to use it. Maybe in the third paragraph or in the fourth paragraph, you can use transitions there. So we started with different types of, different forms, words that show transition. We say we have transitions that show similarity. Transitions that show similarity include also in the same way, just as, so too. Just as this is done this way, so too are all these ones performed like this. That's how so, just as they put ellipses before they put so too. So just always goes with so. Likewise, similarly, there are all transitions that show similarity. Transitions that show exception or contrast. If you want to show opposite ideas, opposing ideas, you can use these transition words. But, however, in spite of, on the other hand, nevertheless, nonetheless, notwithstanding, in contrast, on the contrary, still, yet. So do not use them together. You have to use them one. Some people used to say still yet. So don't use them like that. So it is either you use still or yet. All this while, I've been advising my sister to pay attention to the matters on ground. Still, she refuses to pay attention. So still is showing contrast, yet is also showing contrast. Then we have transitions that show sequence or order. So we said we have first, second, third, next, then, and then finally. Transitions that are used to show time, we have after, afterwards, at last, before, currently, during, earlier, immediately, later, meanwhile, now, recently, simultaneously, subsequently, then, in the meantime, and so on. We have transitions that show examples. For example, for instance, namely, specifically, to illustrate. Transitions that emphasize, they show emphasis, even, indeed, in fact, of course, truly. Transitions that show place or position, we have above, adjacent, below, beyond, here, in front, in the back, nearby, there. Transitions that show cause and effect, accordingly, consequently, hence, so, therefore, thus. Transitions that add additional support, that show additional support or evidence. Additionally, again, also, and, as well, besides, equally important, further, furthermore, in addition, moreover, then. Then we have transitions that show conclusion or summary. Finally, in a word, in brief, briefly, in conclusion, in the end, in the final analysis on the whole, thus, to conclude, to summarize, in sum, to sum up, in summary. So then we showed you examples where transition words make difference. We say that transition words are used to, from what we've shown here, they always make a difference in our writing. They make it better. Kara couldn't sleep the night before her big presentation. She needed an extra large cup of coffee before work. With transition, Carla couldn't sleep the night before her presentation. Therefore, she needed an extra large cup of coffee before work. Jeffrey will be ready to leave for the trip in 20 minutes. Fill up the car with gas, please. Jeffrey will be ready to leave for the trip in 20 minutes. In the meantime, fill up the car with gas, please. The trip through the desert was long and tiring for the crew. They all agreed it was worth it. The trip with transition, the trip through the desert was long and tiring for the crew. Afterwards, they all agreed it was worth it. Denise decided to stop doing her homework. She failed freshman English. With transition, Denise decided to stop doing her homework. Consequently, she failed freshman English. That is cause and effect. Last night, I had a vivid dream. I was living in Paris. I went online and booked a trip. Same cause and effect. Last night, I had a vivid dream. I was living in Paris. As a result, I went online and booked a trip. That is how transition makes a difference. Any questions?
Well, I can't really say, but if she needs time to go through it personally. But we appreciate your recapping the lesson. So if there's any, if there's anything, maybe we'll communicate to you later. But I think she needs time to digest this.
All right, sir. It's okay. So for your assignment, you can try to write sentences and put in any of these transition words that I've used, that I've given you. Any of them. Just write 2 or 3 or 4 sentences and use a transition word to join them, just like we use this one. So use at least, I want you to make write-up that contain at least 5 transition words. Make a write-up that contain that. So in each write-up, you can use 1 transition word. In another write-up, you can use 1 transition word. So make up to 5 write-ups where you used one transition word in each of them. Just like I showed you in these examples. Denise decided to stop doing her homework. She failed freshman English. Denise decided to stop doing her homework. Consequently, she failed freshman English. So I wanted to make such write-ups to show me how you can use transition words to make a difference, in what you have written. Is that clear?
Yes.
It's all right.
Well,
All right, we've come to the end of the lesson. Next week we'll continue, but tomorrow we will do more examples. If you ask questions when you come to school, I will explain more of them to you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
I mean,